Monroe's return to his physical body was triggered by a mundane biological necessity. A full bladder pulled him out of a non-physical conversation and back to his 1990s bedroom, where a glowing digital clock and a quilted comforter marked the boundaries of his ordinary world. He soon attempted to apply his out-of-body access to a practical, earthly problem. A neighbor had died of a heart attack, and the grieving family asked Monroe if he could locate the man and establish contact. Monroe brought the request to his control entity, INSPEC, but the request was denied. He was told that such direct access was impossible at the time, leaving him with only a distant, generalized report on the neighbor's status. He accepted the refusal as the limit of what could be offered. He understood the non-physical realm followed a rigid structure that didn't bend for personal requests. Metaphysical access would not be used to solve human grief. Monroe shifted his methodology, moving away from practical errands to begin a systematic inquiry into the ultimate limits of what INSPEC could reveal. His first formal request was simple. He wanted to communicate with a single, non-human intelligence. INSPEC granted the request with a sudden spatial shift. Monroe found himself suspended in open space, the cratered gray moon directly below him, and the blue-white marble of Earth close by. A massive, saucer-shaped craft appeared behind him. It loomed impossibly large before shrinking instantly to a more modest 200 feet across as it approached. A hatch opened and a figure emerged, but it bore no resemblance to typical alien biology. The entity was short and round, dressed in a battered gray top hat and a tailcoat, a stylized, comically shabby archetype with a leering, familiar grin. The entity identified itself as an exporter. It traveled the stars to harvest human humor, which it described as a one-in-a-million product and the perfect tonic for an overloaded mind. This encounter reframed the human presence in the cosmos. To this intelligence, humanity is valued for its specific psychological output rather than its technological or military potential. For his second inquiry, Monroe asked to meet the most mature and evolved human currently living on the physical Earth. INSPEC led him to a sunlit room that could have been anywhere on the planet. Seated at a desk was a figure Monroe called Heshe, whose face and build were perfectly balanced between male and female. A massive radiation of energy poured from this being. Monroe felt every human emotion that had ever existed, all at once, in a wave that was overwhelming yet strangely familiar. Monroe realized Heshe had lived a single, continuous physical lifetime for 1,800 years. Unlike standard reincarnation, Heshe maintained one unbroken conscious presence for 2 millennia. To sustain this span without detection, the entity employs a strategy of constant change, moving through fluid modern jobs: ambulance driver, late-night bartender, psychiatric counselor, and university history instructor. The peak of human evolution in this context is a mastery of absolute adaptability, the ability to remain physically present by continually shedding one identity for the next across the centuries. When Monroe asked for direct help with the world's problems, Heshe turned the question back. The entity challenged Monroe's expectation of receiving answers when he himself insisted others find their own. Instead of a conversation, Heshe offered a rote, a highly compressed package of information passed into Monroe's chest as a brilliant sphere of light. This was a structural blueprint for a unified global endeavor. It outlined a path toward human unity built on planetary necessity, ignoring the divisions of religion, race, and politics. As the meeting ended, Heshe addressed him by a name Monroe had never heard before: Ashaneen. The entity offered no explanation for the title before turning to leave. This level of inquiry provides frameworks for inevitable crises, but it leaves the investigator with a name and a nature he no longer recognizes back in his body. making him seek hidden depths in every ordinary interaction. Several nights later, he returned to the INSPEC contact point. The dynamic changed. The initial awe was gone, and the two figures shook hands as peers. INSPEC noted that his vibrational tuning was complete. His thoughts were now clear and crisp, requiring no further adjustments from the system. This clarity marked the end of their meetings. Monroe was told that his shifting polarities meant the human coat and glove would no longer fit what he was becoming. The ultimate purpose of exploring the non-physical universe is not to catalog its anomalies, but to precipitate an evolutionary departure from the human form itself.